grid that benefits everyone, from the generators and utilities that create and transmit our power to the families paying bills at home. As the AI era dawns and this region positions itself to be a leader in that innovation, this mission is more urgent than ever. And we know the answers will rest not with PJM alone, but also with leadership by the states. Here in Pennsylvania, we're fortunate to have the thoughtful and action-oriented leadership of my boss, Governor Josh Shapiro. From his first days in office, Governor Shapiro has been focused on improving PJM in ways that benefit Pennsylvania and the region. Over the last 2 years, Governor Shapiro has laid out shortcomings at PJM through 10 public letters that describe problems and offer solutions. He fought and won a major victory for consumers earlier this year, preventing over $16 billion in excessive price increases. These are not mere words or intentions, they are a record of action. Now he's here to challenge us and to lead us in building a more stable, more affordable, and more reliable energy grid. Please join me in welcoming one of our region's great energy leaders, Governor Josh Shapiro.
Good morning. I want to welcome you all to Philadelphia, and let me begin by thanking Jacob for that kind introduction. He has done an incredible job gathering all of you here and setting up what I think is going to be a critically important and a really positive discussion. I understand that this meeting has attracted some attention. One of the media outlets reported that it is, quote, the hottest ticket in town. Actually, hold on, the full quote is, the hottest ticket in town for energy wonks. Sorry, I want to make sure I've got that. So I guess that makes us energy wonks. And it is a hot ticket because it gives us an opportunity to have a meaningful discussion that, quite frankly, I think is long overdue. It was here in Philadelphia, 98 years ago, that PJM was founded. And so it's fitting that we come back here today for this conversation on the future of PJM. What began as a partnership between utilities in Pennsylvania and New Jersey has of course grown over the last century to encompass 13 states to provide energy for 67 million Americans. But in 98 years, I don't think there has ever been a meeting like this, bringing together representatives from all 13 states that make up the PJM grid, that allow us to get around the table, take stock of the challenges that this grid faces, and to think creatively about solutions for our collective future. You are making history by being here and by participating in this important conversation. I want to say that I am especially grateful for the participation of several of my fellow governors, who I know will join us virtually as this conversation goes on today and tomorrow. I think it is important to note that both Republicans and Democrats will be represented in the conversation here. It is critical that this not be a partisan exercise, but this be an exercise that is something that brings us together. I also want to make a special note of the presence of Steve DeFrank, the chairman of the PUC, who joins us here today. Steve does a great job for us in Pennsylvania, and I'm pleased he'll be here as an active participant in this conference. Thank you, Steve. Look, we are here because it is time to think big, and it is time to work together to reimagine the future of PJM, to build a grid that works better for Pennsylvania and for each of our states. Let's face it, change is needed to keep energy costs low, bring new energy generation onto the grid more quickly, and meet the needs of the nearly 70 million Americans who rely on this grid for everything from running a business to keeping lights on at home. We've gathered here today at what I would consider to be an inflection point. PJM staff, led by Manu, and we're grateful that he is with us today, do important work every single day for us, coordinating the flow of power across our states and ensuring that homes and businesses have a power supply that they can rely on, even in the most challenging conditions. Over the past 30 years, our states have given PJM more and more responsibility. We can now count on PJM to not only coordinate the flow of electricity, but to ensure that we have enough power plants to serve the grid. But over the last few years, let's be frank, PJM has been too slow to let new generation through its queue and to join the grid at a time where demand for energy is going up. PJM now has a D- rating of the speed of its interconnection queue. Those delays threaten the very energy projects PJM says we need. It also slows the economic growth of our respective states. This slow, reactive approach is no longer working for our states and for the communities that we serve. And it's all happening at a time when the Trump administration is cutting funding for new energy projects that are almost complete, and at a time where we need more energy generation. The result has been dramatically increased prices in PJM's capacity auctions, and that has led to higher energy bills for consumers across the grid. As governor of this great Commonwealth, I'm privileged to represent 13 million Pennsylvanians, and I can tell you they can't afford never-ending price increases because of PJM's policies. I think my fellow governors, who are all represented here today, would agree. Yet despite these significant challenges, there is actually no forum for elected officials from our 13 PJM states to have a direct say in PJM's decisions. In other parts of the country, states have far more representation in the governance of their shared grid. For the largest grid in the nation, to have the fewest avenues for consumers and their elected representatives to be heard is unacceptable and outdated. Our states and our citizens deserve better, especially from an institution that was founded right here in Philadelphia, the birthplace of democracy and citizen participation. Let me give you just one example of why I consider this to be a problem. Last year, when I got wind that the 2025 auction would be potentially the highest ever, I immediately objected because it would have cost ratepayers about $20 billion a year in additional costs. And we still wouldn't have gotten the power plants we need through PJM's process. That was unacceptable to me, and I told PJM that. I spent months working behind the scenes with PJM leaders to try and find a different path forward, one that spared ratepayers the unnecessary rate hikes and did more to bring new power plants online faster. When we couldn't come to agreement, I sued them. And a bunch of the states represented here today ultimately joined me in that lawsuit. I am grateful for their participation. The governors of Maryland and Delaware, New Jersey, and Illinois saw that we were standing up for consumers and joined us, and there is strength in numbers. But the one thing I learned over the years as Pennsylvania's Attorney General and now as governor is you've got to keep talking even after a suit is filed. Because if you keep talking, you may eventually find a way forward. And that is what we did. As a result of our efforts, we worked together with PJM's leadership to reach agreement that staved off the kind of price increases that they were talking about. We saved ratepayers about $16 billion over the next 2 years. That's a huge win for consumers in our respective states. But hear me on this. It shouldn't take us going to court to have our voices and the voices of 67 million Americans who are served by the PJM grid heard by PJM's leadership. We need to be in the room to make sure our citizens have a seat at the table. Now, I want to be very clear. Even as I work to protect consumers, I also know that we need to bring more power online. That's why I pushed PJM to expedite the interconnection of new energy generators here in Pennsylvania, including the Crane Clean Energy Center, which will be ready to connect to the grid a year earlier than originally expected. I am an all-of-the-above energy governor. And with a common sense energy strategy inspired by Ben Franklin, who's hanging out in that room, by the way, you should check him out when you're done. Ben Franklin inspired our lightning plan, and we're doing our part by building more power in this Commonwealth, creating more good-paying jobs, and delivering long-term savings for the good people of Pennsylvania. We have made important progress here in Pennsylvania and in states all across the region, and we've seen what we can accomplish when governors speak in a unified voice and make our concerns heard. I believe we need to do more of that. I look forward to working more closely with my fellow governors of both parties on this effort. I'm hopeful that one outcome of this conference will be greater collaboration between our states to address the serious problems that PJM has and a greater voice in this process. This system needs real reform. And that is what I know has brought all of you here today to discuss. I understand we've got different perspectives when it comes to these problems. I'm on the government side, trying to make sure Pennsylvania consumers have reliable access to affordable energy every single time they flip that switch in their home or at work. We've asked you all to come to the table here today because each of us has a different piece of that puzzle. But right now, I think we're all looking at the same picture. We can't keep doing what we've been doing in this rapidly changing world and expect it to work any longer. It's not working anymore. We've come to that conclusion. And it is time to get serious about making significant reform for PJM. I will not stand by for a status quo that perpetuates slowdowns and rising costs. In Pennsylvania, we are moving at the speed of business. And since PJM can't move fast enough, we need to chart a new course that delivers more for the good people of Pennsylvania. Listen, Pennsylvania is the second largest net energy producer in the entire country, and by far the largest generator of energy in the entire PJM network. If PJM refuses to change, we will be forced to go in a different direction, and that will have a significant impact here in this region and across the country. To be clear, that is not a path that I'm eager to chart, but I am not willing to stand idly by and let PJM dictate our future. Time for real action led by the states is right now. For nearly a century, Pennsylvanians have trusted the PJM grid to keep the light on. We believe in the promise of PJM's markets. PJM was a success story born right here in Pennsylvania. I want it to be that again. But for that to happen, we've got to really grapple with some serious questions about how this market should work and how it can be governed more effectively, how it can bring new generation onto the grid in a way that's affordable for families and consumers and be responsive to those families and their elected representatives. As we confront rising energy demand, is PJM's capacity market, which we have entrusted with balancing energy supply and maintaining resource adequacy, capable of bringing new energy resources onto the grid at prices that are affordable to consumers? That is a foundational question that we must answer. And if it is not, then the question is, what comes next? That's what we need to explore here today. Now, hear me on this. Exploring what comes next for PJM and the 13 states that have come here today, well, that doesn't mean going backwards to the same old approaches that we've relied on in the past. It means looking forward and really grappling with how we can work together to meet our region's energy needs while keeping energy costs down. I challenge each of you who are here today for the hottest ticket in town not to retreat to your separate corners and familiar arguments, but to approach today's conversations with the clarity that there are significant challenges to solve, and with the ambition to think big again and to put all of the ideas on the table for meaningful discussion. It was here in Philadelphia that PJM was founded 98 years ago. This is where it all started, and this is where we can begin to write the next chapter together. I view this as a moment of real opportunity for PJM and its member states. Working together, I know we can reform this system to give states more say, to generate more power more quickly, and to hold down costs. Working together, I believe we can accomplish that. So I want to thank you for being here today. I want to thank you in advance for your constructive participation, and I hope you enjoy your time here in the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you.